Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with a story in which employees who were mistreated by the boss got justice. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Don't want to pay? Then you'll pay. This is a tale told to me by a former colleague who isn't much into computers, let alone Reddit. He still has an AOL email address, FFS. Let's call him Dave, since that's his name. He gave me permission to pass this story on. Dave is a tradesman and was working for a bit of a jerk we'll call Mike. Mike has a growing business with 6 or 8 tradesmen that work out of an office/warehouse in an industrial strip mall a bit off the beaten path in an industrial area. His business has grown since he started with himself and his father. Now there's the workers, a dispatcher/CSR, an accountant, a warehouse guy, a data entry person, and a team that quotes new construction jobs. The problem is that Mike's location comes with a limited number of parking spots, and most of them are filled with staff, leaving only a spot or two for customers. Often these customers park in spaces that are allocated to other units in the strip mall, which has caused friction between Mike and the other tenants. Mike has the workers take their trucks home each night, so what ends up happening is that the worker leaves the job site at say 4:30 p.m. and doesn't often make it home until 6 p.m., depending on the distance from the site to their home. This is in the Toronto area where traffic is a problem every rush hour. One of Dave's colleagues looks into it and discovers that Ontario labor law states that a worker is to be paid from the minute he leaves his driveway to the minute he returns. This drive to the first job, or the shop, and the return home can easily add 3 hours a day, which should be paid time. But Mike isn't paying. Dave's coworker brings this up at a staff meeting and Mike loses his crap. "I'm not obliged to pay you for travel time. If you look closer at the labor law, it says that if taking the vehicle home is for the convenience of the employee, then the drive is unpaid time." Dave's coworker smiles and agrees with Mike. "So then, Mike, if I bring the truck back to the shop at the end of my shift, according to labor law, you have to pay me my drive time from the shop to the site and from the site to the shop, right?" Mike hesitates. "Have your lawyer look into it. In the meantime, I've got to let you know that it's no longer convenient for me to take the truck home. I'll come to the shop and pick up my truck in the morning." This guy had done his research, and he was absolutely correct. It wasn't long before the rest of the workers told Mike the same thing. The guys came into the shop at 7 a.m., parked their personal vehicles in the allotted spots, then jumped into their trucks and headed for the job sites. Their time clock started ticking as soon as they arrived and began collecting materials for the day. Meantime, there weren't enough vacant parking spots left for the people that worked there, and the office workers, starting at 8:30, had to park further out, which escalated tensions between Mike and the other tenants. There was no indoor parking for all the trucks, which had to be left out back overnight. As I mentioned, this industrial area was a little out of the way, so in the first month alone, there were at least 3 break-ins and thousands of dollars of tools were stolen. Some belonged to the workers who told Mike if he didn't replace them, they would file against his insurance. In any event, trucks were off the road for repairs each time, delaying jobs. Mike was still paying all the workers overtime from the time they left the shop until the time they returned by law. Not from the time you got to the site until you left it the way it was before. Only now he has nowhere to park. The landlord had him on blast and he was paying a private security company to watch the trucks overnight. Finally, Mike relented, conceding that allowing the workers to take the trucks home was more for his convenience than theirs, and started paying the guys for drive time, like he should have been doing from the start. The workers went back to driving the trucks home and getting paid for the drive to the shop or the site and back home at day's end. And Dave's coworker, the one that opened that can of worms, he was already negotiating a new job, one that paid drive time, which was what tipped him off in the first place. Mike was on his butt continually after this, which wasn't for long because he quit and headed for the new job, leaving all his coworkers collecting far more pay every 2 weeks to their enduring gratitude. And our last story. Don't mess with us, even if you're family. Before I start, a little background on my family. My father is a typical working-class man from a poor family who worked pretty much his entire life. My mom, on the other hand, comes from a very important and respected family of my city. Her family is wealthy with strong connections, and are friends with pretty much all the important people of my city, from the mayor and his entourage to lawmen and businessmen. Now, my mom and dad met a long time ago and fell in love instantly. Soon they were married. My mom's family disliked my dad from the beginning. They saw him as a poor plebe and a disgrace to the family. When my brother and I came along, they also demanded us to be named from members of their side of the family, since we would have my dad's last name, etc. You get the point. Posh, arrogant jerks. When I was 8 and my brother 9, our mom got diagnosed with cancer. 3 years later, she died. My dad was alongside her the entire time, her own family not. Her sister, my aunt, was always absent in some formal reception and always claimed she was busy, and her mother, my grandmother, was claiming she was too old to move while her health was perfect. In total, they barely visited my mom in 3 years. The day my mom died, we were devastated. Both me and my brother cried like babies. We were kids, actually, 12 and 13 respectively, and our dad was in shambles. Then it all happened. A few hours later, my dad gets a phone call. It's from my aunt and says they need to meet instantly. So he goes to meet them. What followed was mental. My aunt, with a lawyer on her side, started attacking my dad, telling him that now that his wife was dead, he was incapable of having custody of the kids, me and my brother, and that they should take care of us. My dad was furious and said no. They responded the next day with more pestering and abuse. Mind you, the funeral hadn't even taken place yet. This went on for years. Each time, different demands. They ended up accosting my dad of assaulting my aunt, causing a lot of people to turn their backs on us. They started sending my dad legal papers on what they could do, etc., etc. Then they tried taking away our inheritance based on stupid crap. We ended up finding out that some money reserved for us had suddenly vanished, and then they called us and threatened my dad that if he doesn't give custody, they will not give us the money. Thanks to a stupid law in my country, they could do that. My dad felt like crap. Many times we caught him crying on top of piles of papers or hitting his head on the table in despair. In the night, we could hear him crying from our room and could do nothing about it. They made his life a torture. The only thing that kept him sane was my brother and I. And he was great as a dad. He provided for us, and despite his mental state being awful, he was an amazing dad. Fast forward 10 years later. The abuse stopped. My father found a girlfriend who's amazing and are happy together. Both my brother and I got accepted into university and are doing pretty well. My mom's family have stopped talking to us, and every time they try to make contact, we promptly ignore them. Until this summer. You see, this summer my cousin got married. They invited us to the wedding. When I say us, I mean my brother and I, so we accepted and started crafting the plan. Because in my country, weddings are a huge deal, a lot of people would be there, and so because of the social status of my mom's family, the most important people would be there. So we decided to use that to our advantage. You see, a lot of people had no clue about the whole story, only the parts they told them. It was exposure time. The big day arrives and I'm full on ready. I go to the church and outside I see the people. Then my brother arrives and we know stuff is about to go down. The reception starts and we're patiently waiting for it to end and the after party to begin. In the after party, which was in a huge mansion outside the city, everyone is present. We spot my aunt and grandmother and a group of people. One of these people is the mayor. Bingo! So we approach them in a friendly way. My aunt says to the people the classics, "Have you met my nephews?" etc., etc. Then we start hearing the conversation a bit. As we predicted, they started talking about my dad, how horrible he was, how he exploited my mom, and how lucky we are that we came out bright unlike him. The last one made me mad. I raise my glass, look my aunt in the eyes, and inside the whole group of the most wealthy, important, prestigious people of my city, I say, "Actually," I unleashed the whole story, all while praising my dad and damning my aunt and my grandmother. If I left anything out, my brother would fill in. After I finished, complete silence fell. My aunt was red from anger, my grandmother was on the verge of bursting into tears, everyone else shocked. They started looking at the two of them in dismay and anger. My little cousin, not the one getting married, who was oblivious to the whole situation, wanted to just leave and was constantly asking my aunt, "Mom, is that true?" The story was presented with such attention to detail that they couldn't even deny anything. Then we say the bombshell. At least we came out fine. Our studies are going excellent, all thanks to our dad. The last one was to rub salt at the wound of them. We then left them in shock. From other people, we later learned that everyone turned their backs to them. They became the shame of the city and ended up isolated in their big, fancy houses. The mayor cut all contacts with them, so did the businessmen and everyone, in fact. The big bomb was when a business they owned shut down because no one would fund them. I only feel sorry for the employees of them who were left without a job. Another big hit came when the municipal council, clearly by the mayor's orders, removed the commemorative plaques in some buildings they had donated money in. That killed them inside. They tried to reconciliate afterwards, but we ignored them. The most beautiful thing was when my dad learned of what we did, he was the happiest man alive. Seeing the rich, arrogant a-holes who tormented him go down like that. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.